Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here, and I'd like to do a special screenwriter's take on Buck Henry. Yes, Buck Henry was one of my comedy idols, and if you don't know who Buck Henry is, I'm about to tell you about a great, great screenwriter, a great comedian, and just one of the funniest guys to ever live. I'm going to set Joan down. I got his IMDb page here. I'm just going to go through some of his credits. Um, his early credits include The New Steve Allen Show, which, for its time would have been the Tonight Show, Letterman, Colbert Show of its era, when it was really funny. And after that, he did some other shows, but eventually, and what he's being lauded for right now is he wrote the screenplay for The Graduate, and that really broke his whole career wide open, I think, in a lot of ways. Then he did one of the greatest TV shows, in my view, along with Mel Brooks. He wrote Get Smart, the original Get Smart. And let me tell you something, if you haven't seen the original Get Smart, it's just one of the funniest shows ever made. It's really a great show. Besides the fact Don Adams made an excellent Maxwell Smart, it just had so many great moments in that show. If you ever get a chance to binge watch it and you haven't seen Get Smart, you really should. It was the comedic version of spy movies, way before Austin Powers, way before Archer, and it's just a brilliant show. Then later he went on to write more screenplays. He wrote the screenplay for Catch-22, The Owl and the Pussycat, What's Up, Doc? The Day of the Dolphin. I had forgotten this, but I did watch this show when it came out. And this was in 1980. He wrote the TV series Quark, and he actually created it. It was like a funny sci-fi show. He also wrote The Nude Bomb, which was the movie version of Get Smart, which wasn't great, but had its moments. Some other movies he wrote include, he did an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He wrote the 2008 Get Smart, or it said, actually, no, he was credited for the characters in Get Smart. So I guess they're just crediting him because they kind of had to. Yeah, that new Get Smart movie wasn't as good as the old. I mean, the old one was so good. He was an actor too. Not super known as an actor, but if you saw him, you'd recognize him. He was on Saturday Night Live a bunch of times, and he's actually in The Graduate too, and he's in Catch-22. I don't remember him in Quark. I guess he was just one scene. He liked to be in stuff, which I totally admire. Let's see. Was any fan? He was in. I know he hosted Saturday Night Live a few times, and my favorite all-time sketch, and I've been tweeting this all day, is he was on Saturday Night Live, and the opening sketch is there's this huge protest outside of Saturday Night Live, outside the studio, and people just absolutely hate Buck, and Buck is completely oblivious. He thinks they're there to cheer him on, and it turns out they're protesting because they hate him and they don't want him to host the show anymore. And it's just a great moment. Oh, he was in Murphy Brown. He was in Defending Your Life, and I remember that. Yeah, that was a pretty funny turn he did. He was in Grumpy Old Men. Some newer stuff. Yeah, I don't remember any newer stuff. Oh my God, he was in an episode of Law and Order. Look at that, in 2012. That probably wouldn't be funny or as funny as a lot of his stuff, but that's very funny that he was in that. But God, you know, Buck Henry was just he was so good. He was just so good. He was really one of those people in the business who really knew how to be a supporting guy and embrace that enthusiastically in everything he did. I mean, he also had his own look too. Like he had glasses and a baseball cap, and he was kind of a skinny guy, and that was basically his look. Um, oh, and he was on the Dilbert TV series as Dadbert. Cool. But oh, and he's got 4 director credits. Let's see what those are. Trying Times, First Family, Heaven Can Wait. Oh, I had no idea he directed that. Huh. He didn't write it, did he? I don't think he wrote that. Let's see. I mean, that's a really good movie if you haven't seen Heaven Can Wait. Directors. Was he credited as the writer is the question. No. No. Writing credits Elaine May, Warren Beatty, Harry Segal, based on the play-by, and Robert Towne, who was uncredited, directed by Warren Beatty and Buck Henry. Huh. Probably knew that before, but, another good movie. So, I mean, really, Buck was, he's just so damn funny. Just so unassuming, and, he was always around in Hollywood, in TV shows and movies, or contributing one way or another as much as he could. And he had a long career, long storied career. He just passed, in case you didn't know. He was 89, and up until a few years ago, I kept seeing him in stuff, and he seemed pretty spry for someone in his 80s. It's a shame, we're losing some of the greats, and we always lose them eventually. But for screenwriting, I think if you're going back and you're taking a look at screenplays, you could do a hell of a lot worse than look at some Buck Henry stuff, especially The Graduate. The Graduate's a great screenplay. Definitely has a lot of subtlety to it, a lot of comedy, and it very much has, The Graduate's, Dustin Hoffman's character very much has Buck Henry's voice. You could kind of hear it in the dialogue. You could almost see a guy like Buck Henry playing that role. Later on, I think he was, as he got older, he was more of like a crazy uncle kind of guy. That was always his character. But I think, I think it sounded like him. It sounded like the way he talked and delivered certain lines. And if you could ever, catch some of the ancient SNLs with him in it, it was some classic stuff. And again, I cannot recommend enough Get Smart. One of the most, it's just so damn funny. I mean, so many great scenes. I'm just going to tell you my one favorite scene. I know I hate when people do that to me, but I'm going to tell you my one. So, like, the bit is, typical spy stuff. The agents of chaos are trying to kill Maxwell Smart, who's in control. It's chaos versus control. So Max is in his apartment, and there's some beautiful woman there, and she says, Max, I don't know how you stand it. There are all these men trying to kill you. And Max says something like, well, let me tell you something. When you're a spy, you have to have nerves of steel. Every moment you could be killed, and I know that I'm ready at any time to die if that's necessary for my country. He says something like super, super brave. And then the doorbell rings, and he just stands up and he unloads the entire clip of his gun into the door. And then he goes, who is it? And it's, of course, the chief, who was always his foil on the show, is, the chief of control, his boss. And he's like, Max, it's me. What the heck are you doing? I'm of course butchering it by telling it and laughing through it, but God, I laughed so hard the first time I saw that. Buck Henry, he will be missed. So, if you don't know Buck Henry, screenwriters, get to know him, because I think you could learn a lot.